basically the bottom line was, if anybody asks you, it's kind of if anybody asks you, whether it was an attorney or whoever, anybody asks you, it would be helpful if you could remember a number like around $100,000 that we discussed at that time. And so without much ado, my big error, of course, was that I said, yeah, I would do that.
They would have to testify under oath before the Watergate grand jury. If the prosecutors and the jurors didn't swallow their story, Magruder would be charged. Inevitably, he would drag Nixon's top aides down with him.
We were all aware that I was going to go up and perjure myself, and that was the way the cover-up was going to work. You go up and you testify to why we spent the money with Liddy, and then you bring Porter in and he backs up your story. We were not 5-year-olds.
It's a lawyer's distinction, but I must say, and it's self-serving, that I did advise him. I said, Jeb, I can't tell you to go in front of that grand jury to perjure yourself, but I will tell you, I'll give you a good question, and I know exactly the kind of questions they're going to ask you. And so I spent about a couple hours just grilling him and getting him ready for his perjury.
Magruder swore his oath and told his lies. Then it was Porter's turn.
I had to repeat this particular story about the $100,000 amount, and all the rest of it was all the rest of what I said there was quite factual. My mention of the $100,000, as we know, was not.
Porter appeared before the grand jury and made a very credible impression. His father was a judge. I think he'd been an ex-Marine, and his whole presence carried with it an air of credibility. And he corroborated Mr. Magruder's account of the purpose and use of the money, and that certainly was of great assistance to Mr. Magruder.
Magruder made it.
Federal indictments were returned in Washington today in the Watergate bugging
complaints. Sources here at the Justice Department say the investigation by both the FBI and the grand jury is over. There is no evidence, they insist, that anyone else was involved.
The last witness was called this morning, virtually guaranteeing there will be no trial before Election Day.
On September the 15th, the 4 Cubans, McCord, Hunt, and Liddy were charged. No one else.
We had contained the matter during the campaign because I didn't feel at that time that any erosion of the strength of the president in the country, of his support in the country, and also I didn't feel that his defeat in an election would be in the best interest of the country.
On September 15th, came back to my office. Jane, my secretary, said, the president wants to see you over in the Oval Office. I was really quite surprised.
The basic reason for the meeting was to give John Dean a feeling that the president was pleased with his work and was thanking him for it, patting him on the shoulder and saying, good boy, well done.
In essence, the president said, you know, just want to tell you what a good job you've done with the cover-up. What surprised me is I really, for the first time, began to see who Richard Nixon was in this meeting. He sort of let down and began to tell me about how we've got to get after our enemies that have done us wrong during this whole Watergate matter after the election.
Now they're doing this quite deliberately, and they're asking for it, and they're going to get it. We haven't used the Bureau, we haven't used the Justice Department, but things are going to change now. And they're going to change, and they're going to get it right.
On November the 7th, 1972, Richard Nixon carried 49 out of 50 states. He was re-elected president by the biggest margin in history. It looked as though he'd got away with it.
The story continues and the cracks in the conspiracy begin to show next week at the earlier time of 8:40 on BBC Two.